We begin with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Season opens up at home against Middle Tennessee. Then one of the biggest non-conference games of the entire season. It was a 20-19 grinder last year. So here comes the return visit. Texas shows up September 9th, week 2. Then Alabama on the road at USF. Shout out to 2-for-1s out there as Alabama gets to go and fill Ray J to take on the Bulls. Though, Alex Galesh, who knows, might have something for him. Back home for the SEC opener against Ole Miss on September 23rd. Then at Mississippi State, at Texas A&M, Arkansas at home, and then Tennessee at home. 8 games, no breaks. Finally get an off week on October 28th, but that's normal. This is about the Alabama schedule. You have the off week heading into the LSU game. LSU is going to be in Tuscaloosa as well on November 4th. Then at Kentucky, Chattanooga at home, and then Iron Bowl is at Auburn. Over-under of 10.5 right now. Caesar Sportsbook has the over at +120, the under at -150. But what are we doing with Alabama?
I am very slightly under on Alabama, and this is one of the ones that I was on Bama 247 this morning, reading the reports from John Talty and Cody Goodwin, trying to figure out, like, what is this depth chart really going to look like? There's a lot for me to like about this Alabama team. Guess what? Everybody probably thinks there's a lot to like about this Alabama team because the win total is 10.5. So I'm very slightly under. If I was going to go over this, I basically need them to be 14-plus point favorites in more games than I currently have. I ran my numbers this morning. I just have too many games where they're not more than a 2-touchdown favorite. It's like they're clearly more than 1 touchdown, but they're sort of in that like 9 to 13 point range. And I just need them to be a little bit more in order to have that confidence. So I'm not betting this under. I am slightly under. With the quarterback situation, I mean, that is kind of, to me, that and maybe receiver, probably the 2 biggest questions. I am confident they'll be able to run the football very well. I think that's a really good offensive line. I think Ferguson pushing a guy like Dalcourt, who we know is a good football player, into maybe a reserve role is an extremely positive sign for the Tide, because that means some of those young pups who were studs out of high school that they signed are growing up and playing to their potential on the offensive line. And I think their defense is going to be pretty nasty. Passing is more important than running. Okay. And I'm not sure how good the passing game is. I need them to be like a legit top 2 team in the country in order to go over at this number.
Hi, I'm a guy in an Auburn shirt telling you to take the under on Alabama, but I promise I'm not doing it because I hate Alabama. I'm doing it because I think it's the right play. I'm pretty much with Bud on this one. Like, you look at the schedule, and I have questions about the offense at quarterback. I don't know. We don't know the situation. The last few years, we've had a lot more reason to be very optimistic about what we were going to see from the QB and what we were going to see from the receivers and so forth. But the good news is I do think the offensive line is better this year than it has been. And I do think the running game will be better than it has been because of it, because that's one of the things we haven't talked too much about. But the last couple of years, Alabama's run game has been very bad, at least for Alabama standards. Like, is a team that had been in the top 5 of success rate for every year for like the last 10 years. And then the last 2 years, it was in the mid 40s. That's not a great sign. But more than anything, like the schedule, there's not many road games, but you've got Texas, you've got A&M on the road, you've got Tennessee, you've got LSU, you've got the Iron Bowl on the road against Auburn. Of those 5 games, it is not incredibly out of line to think Alabama is going to lose twice. So when I look at this, it's not something I'm officially playing, but 10-2 seems more likely to me than 11-1 and 12-0. So I've got to go under.
I mean, my principle says that this is when you buy in, right? I mean, the years that Alabama has not been picked to win the West in the SEC preseason poll since Nick Saban showed up, I think 4 of them are national championship years for Alabama. Like, this is when you buy in on angry Alabama. Don't count out Nick Saban. Damn, I'm out here counting out Nick Saban. I am on the under as well. You mentioned some of the games that I have, technically as toss-ups, so the process goes that way. And again, like, my heart wants to buy in on, like, this is when Nick Saban's going to run the ball 40 times a game, push around everyone, and win games 24-21. Throw it back to old school Bama. But I do think Bud's point about sort of modern offense and modern college football matters. And I am troubled by, and look, Nick Saban taking everything that he says after a fall camp press conference or a preseason scrimmage, just taking each of those and basing all of your analysis off of it, I would not recommend it. But when he is saying the wide receivers are having too many drops out there, yikes. That follows the underperforming wide receivers storyline that we've been tracing over the last 2 years. When he says that, Jaheim Hodis has been great, but Tim Smith has been up and down. When he's saying that we just don't have enough depth, we don't have enough consistency, then I'm a little bit concerned, because against this schedule, you're going to have to be awesome to go and be 11-1 and contend for an SEC championship. So I'm also on the under.
Can I recommend something here?
Yeah.
If you were going to consider betting this and you were going to bet the over, I would rather have Bama to win the SEC West at even money than I would Bama over 10.5 wins plus 120.
Because you can win that at 10-2.
Yes, sir. You could absolutely win that at 10-2. You could see a Bama team maybe start slow and potentially lose to Texas at home. You also have some interesting tiebreaker scenarios. So I don't know about you guys, but the 3 most likely teams to win the West other than Alabama are Ole Miss, LSU, and A&M. Not in that order.
Right.
So 2 of those 3 come to Tuscaloosa. So there is a real chance you get a tiebreaker. I would rather bet Bama to win the West at even money than take over 10.5 plus 120.
Danny's on the under too, so we're
clean,
a very popular pod with Alabama.
Bama haters.
Well, we should look up Bama undefeated odds then, basically, right? That's certainly on the table.
As part of our recommendation here on the Cover 3 podcast, since clearly we're all aligned on counting out Nick Saban the GOAT, and again, all these other years that everybody counts him out, they go and win the Natty. So yeah, let's just go and do a exact win total. Alabama 12. Fire that in as a nice little hedge.